If you want a TLDR for this video, here it is. Is BONELAB a good game? Yes. Is BONELAB replacing BONEWORKS? Partially. Should I purchase or continue playing BONEWORKS? Absolutely. Now for the too long did read people out there, BONELAB released over the last few days and the reception has not been very PogChamp. Hello fellow kid. With many coming from BONEWORKS where I've seen gameplay of BONEWORKS, people were expecting this groundbreaking VR title that would shift the masses into purchasing Quest 2s or selling their right kidney for an index, but didn't receive this life-changing experience that they were expecting. Now I would just like to reiterate, again, if you have a VR headset and $40 lying around, you won't regret buying BONELAB, especially if you're still a loser virgin over here to this series. You're getting a great game with obviously passionate devs wanting to pursue making this game better. But it did not occur to me how overblown people stated this game would be. No, BONELAB wasn't going to completely change and shift the entire dynamic of VR, but it sure as hell got more people either into or back into VR if they hadn't been playing for a while. BONELAB isn't perfect. I don't even think BONELAB and BONEWORKS should be directly compared to one another, since I believe both games are trying to do something different, but I'm going for those sweet views from strangers on the internet. Obviously, I'm not going to spoil anything if you haven't finished it, which I don't know how you wouldn't have if you purchased this already, considering the story is shorter than my not counting the avatar introduction levels, which we'll get into why I don't count them in a bit. We only get a few levels of actual gameplay, which is shorter than the lifespan of whatever YouTube drama has been going around. Now, why am I not counting the avatar introductions as full levels? Because if you thought BONEWORKS was a tech demo, then oh boy, are you really going to love punching skeletons for 5 minutes straight or traversing through a bridge sprint section with a thick anime girl. Don't get me wrong, we could have gotten a lot worse level design, and I don't actually think they're that bad, but if you mean to tell me that 75% of this game is minigame leaderboard driven experiences, then I guess I'll just keep playing the game then. But what about the actual story? I mean, we all know about how monotone the story in BONEWORKS was. Did BONELAB do any better? I can sum up the story experience in BONELAB pretty easily. It's a more understandable and clear story, but it's not as good as BONEWORKS. Again, without too many spoilers. Oh no, we're getting hung for our crimes. I'll save you.
Ted wins!
Jimmy Wong Finger. Again, if you actually play it, it's completely understandable. I didn't feel lost at all when playing through it, but there's just not a lot of memorable moments in this story. In BONEWORKS, we have museum, streets, Fantasyland, and many other more memorable moments. In BONELAB, the only few levels I can really remember off the top of my head are the avatar introduction levels. To wrap up this section, if you're expecting a BONEWORKS 2 in terms of story, you're not getting it. There's some slight nods to Arthur Ford, but not even a "what up son" is ever mentioned. Now, just because the story stinks like the inside of your dad's shoe doesn't mean it's all bad. The Marrow interaction engine really does shine through for BONELAB, and optimization is far better than BONEWORKS ever had, and that was my #1 thing I wanted to see improved upon. If you directly compared BONEWORKS versus BONELAB on a graphical standpoint, you'd have BONELAB checking more boxes than Charlie Sheen after a night out. I actually streamed a full playthrough of BONEWORKS the day before BONELAB came out, and playing through Warehouse, I was getting significant frame drops and lag.
Oh, my computer's chugging. It is not liking this whatsoever.
In BONELAB, I streamed and recorded my first impressions video without really anything slowing me down. It again boils down to the optimization efforts to fit this game on Quest 2 that ultimately led to the PC VR version also running pretty well. If this Android phone built in a cardboard box can handle something, the Virgin Central Hub can too. And of course, the modding support for both games is absolutely insane. BONEWORKS mods were always just a ton of fun to mess around with, but BONELAB really just takes the modding process and simplifies it down for even a 12-year-old playing Roblox can understand. I'd say without a doubt in my mind, the most memorable BONEWORKS mod was the Spider-Man mod or Entanglement, but those two mods required you to not only have BONEWORKS and a good enough PC to run it all, but you're either installing R2 Modman, finding your game files in the sea of homework files on your computer, or getting a bachelor's degree in computer science to install them manually. BONELAB takes the easy route of having a Steam Workshop-esque mod corner to have mods be an easy one-click install. The hardest part being getting a repo configured properly, which definitely isn't as hard as a Harvard degree in Windows file management to get Entanglement working. We more or less got the same game, just this time with better graphics, a more clear, albeit worse story, and Jimmy Wong. We got Jimmy Wong Finger. This area is going to be a rapid fire round for what I believe to be good or not so good. The weapons are very good. Physics and mechanics are very good. Level design is eh. The avatar system is a cool mechanic. Wish it wasn't a required mechanic to play with. Jimmy Wong. Yes, please. The hub, better than BONEWORKS, albeit a bit too cluttered though. The sandbox, some of these maps are cool. Others are just kind of meh. Hot take, Tuscany is not that cool of a map. Alright, let's stop complaining and talk about how I would like to see BONELAB improved. BONELAB has a lot of things going for it. If you take a step back and take off those BONEWORKS and infested rose-colored glasses, it's just a good VR game, albeit nothing groundbreaking considering we already have a groundbreaking title like BONEWORKS. First things first, please, I'm looking at you, Brandon. Please give us official multiplayer support. I don't even care if we get something like multiplayer level design like Portal 2. I just want to be able to pistol whip my friend in the forehead and call him a stupid loser. I really don't see why this wouldn't be a thing. We have one of the most supported game engines, an interaction engine that's on par with real life, and obese men wanting to be anime girls. I guarantee if Stress Level 0 made a VR chat-like game with BONELAB or even BONEWORKS level of physics and mechanics, it would be a #1 on Steam and meta platforms for months. For the story, bring back Arthur in literally any meaningful way. I said in my first BONELAB video I wanted to see Ford as a more than just an NPC you can spawn, and they gave us a little bit more, but it's not that much better. I know the game is already out, so rewriting the whole story would be more work than it's worth, but at least give us Ford as a starting avatar. Playing BONELAB again with just Ford honestly kind of changed my perspective since it's someone I recognized and knew from BONEWORKS. Please fix the screenshot mechanic. If you're on PC and want to take a screenshot, you're left with this weird third-person perspective like you're trying to show off that you're cosplaying as your average Boku no Pico fan. Now, in conclusion to it all, I don't think the hate for BONELAB is justified. If you take a step back from BONEWORKS and think of it as its own title, almost like a different GTA title, then of course it's an amazing game. Just like how GTA 5 is a good game, although it's in the same location as GTA San Andreas. Both games are great games, but both games are doing something different with their story. BONEWORKS and BONELAB are both in MythOS, but are trying to achieve different things that both did really well.